guys do your own homework with an open mind, and you'll see the connecting dots. Bye for now.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message. Welcome to Revolution Radio, where you, the listeners, are in charge. Here at Revolution Radio, we present 48 broadcast hours of news and information each and every day. Revolution Radio never sleeps. Revolution Radio is worldwide and borderless information. Revolution Radio is also commercial-free. Revolution Radio is supported 100% by you, the listeners. And that's why we appeal to you to donate and support this station and its expenses. You can support us in many available options like archive subscriptions, our seed pack selections, or even my woodworking store. And we also even have Revolution Radio's swag at the Revolution Radio KeithAZLive store, in which you can get t-shirts, coffee cups, even a baby onesie. Or you can just plain donate to the cause. We cannot continue without your support, and your support is what helps pay the bills. So please, if you wish us to continue, please stop by our station support page and drop a dime on us. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps. Your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it. I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Well, squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
This is the people's war. It is our war. We are the fighters. Fight it then. Fight it with all that is in us. And may God defend the right.
Warning! Warning!
We gotta stop them! They're gonna kill us all!
See how the trouble you've started?
Be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human beings. Time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears and upon the wheels, upon the levers, upon all the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who run it, to the people who own it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
You called down the thunder, well now you got it. Right! You tell them I'm coming! And hell's coming with me, you hear? Hell's coming with me!
Revolution Radio!
Extendivite really works. Just listen to what some people have to say.
Several years ago, I was developing a very severe situation. I called it my flippy heart. It was doing not good things, and I did not want to go to a medical doctor because I just knew they would give me a cover-up pill. I didn't want to get onto that sort of thing at all. When I learned it was garlic and cayenne is a healer. It is a wonderful herb. I said, I think I'm onto something here. I'll tell you, I wouldn't be without it. It did wonderful things for me.
Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid. Call now. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Syndicalist commune. We take it in turns to act as a sort of executive officer for the week.
Yes.
But all the decisions of that officer have to be ratified at a special bi-weekly meeting.
Yes, I see.
By a simple majority in the case of purely internal affairs.
Be quiet.
But by a 2/3 majority in the case of more
Be
major...
quiet. I order you to be quiet. Look, you stupid bastard, you've got no arms left. Yes, I have. Look. Just a flesh wound.
I don't believe I've seen such a display of courage, skill, nerve, grace, stupidity.
I'll do you for that. Oh, what? Come here. What are you going to do, bleed on me? I'm invincible.
You're a loony.
The Black Knight always triumphs.
Welcome one, welcome all, and it is that time for Roundtable Live here at Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com. Be rolling on till 4 a.m. in the morning Eastern Time. New ideas, different hosts every night, different subjects every night. You never know what's going to happen right here at the Roundtable Live. King Arthur has nothing on us. We're going round and round.
Alrighty. Okay, I think that's the last bumper. This is KeithAZLive on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio network in the known universe. Anyway, welcome to the show. As always, please do support the network, even if it's a small amount. I've been with the network for 6 years now, and it's been such a joy, but it is 100% listener supported, which is why we don't have commercials, just bumpers for other shows. So please take a few minutes, and monthly pledges are the best. I myself do that. And many of the hosts do. We donate our time, and we even help support the network. It's because we love it, and we love you, and we hope the information we bring you is supportive of moving in a positive direction. That's certainly what I try to do, and having information, alternative information, really, I think, has turned the tide on much of the evil in the world. In fact, I think we're going to see some arrests soon of some major names, James Comey being one. Anyway, welcome to the show. Tonight I have on a fellow host, and let me welcome Bridgette to the show. Hi, Bridgette. How are you this evening?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing very well.
So,
now, you are a fellow host on the network. Why don't we start by just telling everybody, who you are and what time and where they can find your show.
All right. So I'm carrying stones and digging holes on Studio A, Revolution Radio. And you can find my show. I just started Wednesdays. I added additional day. So now I'm on Wednesdays at noon Eastern Standard Time to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And Saturdays, I've been there for over a year now. And that is 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Now, I understand you're having some issues with your web hosting. Do you have a web name, or are you still in process with that?
Well, I did, and then the GoDaddy and the bad guys and everybody. So today I just finally got a new hosting company, and they're in the process of migrating my sites over there so people can actually see them again on the internet once they get migrated. So the name of the website again? That one is coe-llc.com. And then you can always go to my YouTube channel, which is Consciousness of Economics and Urban Farm Project YouTube channel. And then also if people want to get a hold of me, they can email me at consciousnessofelconomics@gmail.com.
All righty. I am monitoring the chat room, so shout out to Mr. Rowe. I'm pretty sure it was you, Mr. Rowe, that reset the server so I could hear the tail end of the bumpers, which is always helpful. So thank you very much. And yes, Monster, I do got to get an intro. I can't even believe I haven't done it yet. I've got everything I need to do it. I even got a recording of JP doing a little intro for me that I want to put some sounds with. But so thank you both of you wonderful people. Mr. Rowe and Monster 383 are part of our management, of course, and do a fantastic job. And on top of that, are super nice people. So anyway, Bridgette, where do you want to start? Of course, I want to know what kind of work you do, and consciousness economics. That's a very interesting title, and something I certainly can talk about as well. Why don't you tell us about what you do?
Well, currently in my life, I do biodynamic farming. I do it. Also, I've adapted some of the techniques to urban farming. I did do urban farm builds. I was doing backyard builds for people, from the poorest to bringing stuff in, sourcing stuff to high end, teaching people how to grow food, at least 25% for 4 seasons in their own yard, and also teaching them how to kind of be sustainable and creating systems in their yard that actually supported the environment and the yard and the growing of food and medicines. And then now I just do a lot of consulting. Sometimes I travel to go to other people's properties. This year I didn't go anywhere. I stayed in Reno because I'm taking an herbal medicine program, one that I've wanted to get in for like 3 years. So that's kind of like where that's at. So I stayed to take care of that. I've studied Steiner into anthroposophy, plant medicine, try to educate people about food. I'm a nutritionalist, but I think I'm more kind of a frontier. I don't know if frontier is the right word, but old school nutritionalist like Rudolf Steiner was. I just have a lot of different philosophies, what actually nutrition are, and health around, microbial mass and a lot of that kind of stuff. So I just have a lot of different ideas and education on nutrition. So I do nutritional consulting with my clients and online. Herbal medicine. These days I wildcraft lots of different types of herbal medicine that target autoimmune system diseases or issues, pain, and also inflammatory issues. And I'm a freaky mofiki for soil and certain types of composting and restoring soil, and also plants and seeds. I'm also kind of in the native seed movement, and And hopefully next year I'll be doing large outgrows of different types of native seeds that we're losing. And native seeds are older. You know, some of these seeds are like 5,000 years old. And so, yeah, I want to save seeds. So in my future, the big thing I'm going to be doing is doing large-scale land restoration, and then also saving seeds and putting plants into it that we're losing, to be able to reseed them, you know, save their seeds, help them to grow, so that we don't lose the medicinal species on the planet, and trees and a lot of other, you know, beings. And for years I've been a traditional osteopath. Because I'm traditionally trained. I'm not a DO, which has been gone through medical school and trained through the AMA system. I'm like real old school. I do a lot of different types of osteopathic formats. I also kind of consider myself a pharmacist because I talk with people about growing food and nutrition and all that kind of stuff. And also I've been doing energetic medicine probably my entire life. So I do a lot of shamanism work based kind of, you know, my family line and things that I've learned along the way. So I do a lot of types of energetic medicine as well. And yeah, so I think that's about it.
Well, that's quite a lot.
I know. I'm like an overachiever.
Well, no, that's awesome. I mean, it sounds like you're very balanced and complete, you know, because you're dealing with a number of different levels of our bodies with all that. Now, I forget exactly what osteopathy is. Is a type of body work?
It relates to the bone and the structure of the bone. That's what osteopath, or, you know, osteo is bone. So it deals with the structure. So to me, it's like way beyond anything else. Like in health, you have to have, your structure has to be aligned. And if your structure is not aligned and it's starting to collapse, you will have disease. And you may get things like eating differently and whatever else, and supplement support to, you know, help you, but long term, you need to actually be manipulated structurally so that everything stays where it needs to be and all of your joints and everything are stacked properly, because your body heals through the nervous system and the brain. And the brain is like the hard drive. So once the brain loses contact with certain parts of the body via communication of the nervous system, then the brain just cuts it off after a while. It'll keep sending a signal until it can't get through anymore, and then it'll treat it kind of like what I call a stroke state, where it just won't send a signal there anymore at all. So anytime that you get out of alignment and it pinches or closes off nerve passages, you're guaranteed that you're going to have some kind of disease, because those cells and all of those things that are going on in that area are no longer communicating with the brain. So the brain can't periodically go into those areas and go, okay, it's time for you to regenerate. You know, it's time for you to reset. And then what happens is you just degenerate in those areas. So I think, you know, as far as the biological suit we're wearing, that people need a lot more structural medicine than they're getting. And I'm kind of, number one, I'm an anomaly for a lot of the work that I do in the United States.
How is that?
Well, I don't really know any more traditional osteopaths that are still alive. You know, in my 20s, they were like 90 years old.
Yeah.
A lot of them are DOs now, and a lot of them do surgeries as corrections, which, you know, it doesn't make any sense, because you need the nerve passages for the brain to pick the body parts up, and you cut through them, and now you've created, you know, damage. So your brain is never really ever going to pick up those areas.
Well, that's extremely interesting. So osteopathy is kind of related to chiropractic then, isn't it?
No.
No?
No. they have 4 categories of work that they do. Traditional osteopath, nutrition, also herbal medicine support, structural medicine, and then energetic medicine.
So it's a much more complete kind of discipline.
Mm-hmm, yeah, and I've adopted a lot of different, cultural type medicine. For example, I do acupuncture. Been doing acupuncture for a long time, but I actually kind of morphed out because I had good teachers. And so I actually kind of have morphed out and created like my own field. So I do what I call structural acupuncture.
Interesting.
Yeah, to help kind of like open up, the areas that are closed down and asleep to the brain.
Well, it's very interesting to me because I've been seeing a chiropractor for a long time, and I've tried to integrate all those, different disciplines of nutrition and the energy work too, and the healing of past traumas as part of the work I've done a lot of. And when you the thing about the structural support is it's not just the nervous system, right? It's the blood flow as well, and the oxygen getting to those areas.
Well, but if that's the whole thing is if the nerve passages are collapsed, I mean, you are going to have circulatory issues and, issues like that. But it's usually the nerve goes first. And the nerve, all the nerves and the nerve endings, they control all the information, the telephone lines, right, between the brain and wherever the line needs to go for the brain to communicate to.
Yeah, I would say electrical lines, actually. So there's so many different ideas about health. Some of the people I'm aware of, I had one friend in particular who said our biggest problem is we don't have enough electrons.
Yeah, but that's because we don't have sunlight. That's the thing that I talk to people and lecture about is I call them the silent nutrients. And so we don't have sunlight charging our water anymore. Back in the old time period where our bodies kind of were developed, we drank water out of waterways, right? And that water, moved through rocks and stones and did all that other stuff, picked up all kinds of metals and minerals. And so it was rich and it was oxygenated as well. And then it had a ton of sunlight in it, right? So there you go. We don't have an electrical charge because we don't eat anything. In shamanism, we consider, and I do really traditional, super old stuff. We consider, me and my teachers that I've had, the sun as the largest power generator in this reality. And we are sick because, one of the reasons we're sick is because we don't utilize it at all. In order to use, sunlight to charge your body and charge your cells up, you actually have to eat food that is cut that day, right out of your own yard, because then you're getting the silent nutrient called sunlight and electrical stimulation and charge that's in that plant that plant is holding. So you go to a grocery store, and even if you get organic lettuce, it's been there longer than 3 days. So green leafy vegetables on average lose all of their nutritional, that science says that it has in it within 3 days.
Yeah.
So that means that, once it was picked and a couple hours after it was picked, once it starts to wilt a little bit, all the sunlight is gone. So all the electrical charge and the power that you need to run your body is not there. And then on top of it, you drink water that has no electrical charge in it at all, has no oxygen in it, has no electrical charge in it, has no sunlight in it. And then a lot of us don't even get outside anymore.
Yeah, it's also that there's so many things. I'm so glad you're talking about growing your own food too, because I feel like it nurtures your soul in a way. I mean, it goes beyond even just the physical, but also the I guess it's the phytonutrients. When they pick fruit in the grocery store before it's ripe. So they haven't matured in their nutritional value anyway in the first place. And also, if you say you buy some organic spinach, if it's been watered with fluoridated water, you're getting a heavy dose of heavy metal neurotoxins.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so fruit, so when it's sugared, it's ripe, and it's kind of like when it's ripe, it's almost like the fruit starts to break down a little bit, becomes softer, but that's how you know that it actually has nutrient in it. And so the only way that we can get a lot of the nutrients that are well known and the nutrients that are not well known, the silent ones, we have to have a relationship to our food, and we have to start growing it. And the other thing too, there's so many things that happen to food that people don't even want to talk about. I mean, let alone the commercial versus organic. And then, you've got organic monoculture, which isn't ideal either. But, when everything kind of has things that haven't been overly cleaned and chemicalized will have a bacteria on them. Maybe it's something that you're not going to be able to see, but this is a B vitamin. I come from years ago and we went to holistic people. We didn't really go to a lot of, Western medical doctors, but my mom would take us to see the doctor, and the first thing he'd do is he'd give us all, B12 injections. That was the first thing out the gate and vitamin C injections before they ever saw us. Sometimes we would just go in to get those, and then, for stress and health and blah, blah, blah. But I remember the B vitamin jars, they had the bacteria growing in the bottom. Because B12 was a bacteria, right? That's the best form. So, if we're overwashing plants, or we're not getting plants to eat, we're losing a lot of bacterial support. B vitamin, B12, that's a bacteria type. And so we're losing a lot of these nutrients that are hanging on to the plants, microbes and B12 and, all different kinds of aspects to it. The other thing that people don't want to talk about is that eating raw food, especially like a lot of green leafy vegetables, actually really helps. If the food is grown in good condition and you eat it right away as soon as it's picked, because a lot of it has natural DMT in it. And DMT opens the doorway to God in your brain, literally. And so if you're not consuming enough of this DMT through live green, leafy plants, you could say that you are having to work a lot spiritually harder and not as connected. So we can see that, people want to say that people before us, or primitive people, or all these other people that lived off the land, ate the food, or even were nomads and grazed, grazed as they walked. They were so much healthier than we were. And they had, a way better connection to their environment. And we are becoming a super incredibly dumbed down version, because we're just so, totally depleted, which is damaging our DNA and our RNA. And then we're passing that damage on to other offspring. So they're starting off with already damaged DNA and RNA. And I think we're about, I was talking to Jordan Maxwell on my show a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying, he was agreeing that we're 5 generations in of dumbed down people because of everything, because of the food. There's no, you're not eating food. I mean, people don't even know what food is. They know what PHUD is, food, pharmaceutical food, but they don't know what, food, FOOD is anymore.
That is funny. I love that distinction. PHUD. Yeah. No. Yeah. So I'm just always shocked at that, people don't really know what food is, and laziness and convenience. And, I know that everybody feels like crap
because everything in their environment is crap.
Well, also, it's my opinion that there's an agenda to divorce us from our natural state, to make us more easily manipulated and controlled. That's a whole nother subject.
Happened, right? So, I mean, that happened, in Sumeria.
Yeah, it goes back literally thousands of years.
Yeah, we still don't have, we still can't figure it out, even though, like we can say, oh yeah, there's, and I love a good conspiracy. I've been a lobbyist and I've seen all the conspiracies. So then I said, I'm not a conspiracist anymore. I'm a factualist because I've seen the bills, for some of these things. But we have to realize, like, all this stuff has been happening to us for at least since Sumeria, when the Adam was created basically in a petri dish, or the Adam in the Bible. And then the generations that, come off of that. So they've been altering us using all kinds of
modalities.
We're lab rats. We just don't know it. We're like rats in a maze called Earth. And they're doing all kinds of interesting things to us.
Well, I think there is a real awakening happening now. I think many people feel like something is coming, and some people see it as the end, and some people see it as a new beginning. I'm of the latter viewpoint. So I see very positive things happening, but also kind of a real division where some people are just choosing the status quo, and others of us are trying to. And I love it that you're really old school too. And oh, by the way, I used to hang out with Jordan Maxwell at these UFO events in the San Francisco Bay Area at the Marriott Hotel till 5 a.m. after the conference. And he's a super nice guy.
I love him. I just love everything about him. I love having him on my show because he's kind of my speed. He's kind of got a lot of information and knowledge, and I always glean something off of him. Every time I have him on my show, there's always something that comes to the surface for sure. I think what's going to happen, though, is I think people are going to really freaky mofiki as soon as the food shortage hits, because the food shortage is going to be astronomical. And I don't think it's going to matter even if you have any money to buy food. I think food is going to be very unavailable for a while in the U.S. And I think it's just starting to show itself with certain kinds of items going empty on shelves across the nation. But I think that it's going to be really, really serious. And I think people aren't really prepared for it because they've never really had, especially in the U.S., they've never really had to deal. I mean, it's been a super long time since the Great Depression or any kind of thing like that. So people have zero idea. And, I'm following this guy. I forget what his name is, but he's a prepper and he's also like a historian. He kind of specializes in, like the Great Depression and around that period, what was going on. And he was saying all the key things that led up to the Great Depression, we're seeing already. He said there was a huge amount of people that were homeless, huge. And they were living in tents, and he showed all these pictures from the time frame where all these people are just living in tents, like all over the streets. And people, had some cars, and you'd see like 6 people crammed in some of these really small cars because they were, completely homeless and living in their cars, and just all the different kinds of things, that were leading up to the Great Depression. And, there was all kinds of farming failures. There was all kinds of, things of that nature, no money. And everything he's talking about is like right now. I mean, Reno, we have like one of the largest homeless populations in the nation. I think we do have the actually largest. I think in April 2018, the New York Times published an article saying Reno, Nevada had the largest homeless population per capita in the nation.
Wow.
And that's a lot because of the fires, all the vineyard fires from 2017, and then 2018, all the big fires in Paradise and all of those areas. So we get people in motorhomes or in their cars. You just couldn't, and they keep periodically wiping them out, like the law enforcement and stuff, that they're taking them somewhere. I mean, because you just have like 1,500 people just disappear in like 2 days, right?
Yeah.
So, but I think that the food shortage is going to be catastrophic. And this is the other thing too, is one of the things Jordan was talking about was that the reason why a lot of people want to migrate here, because we're one of the last countries that people can get into from their countries where there is no food anymore. And that's the biggest reason, like, that the influx of people are coming in. And that, if that's true, we're done with food. I mean, we don't have any food. Everything died and, was flooded, and a lot of it's still flooded, and all the silos that were holding all of the grains from last year's crops, like, flooded over and floated away. There is no stockpiles. It's all gone. And they couldn't get any of the crops back into the ground this year. And all of Nebraska, all of the pigs, the cows, even the calves that need 2 years to grow, a lot of those guys drowned. And so, there's like no food across the board. And before this, I was listening to this guy who was looking at all these USDA documents on their website. And the U.S. only grows enough food for 1% of the population in the United States. Everything else is exported from all these different states. I mean, countries all over the world. So you get a little from this one.
The difference is that big. 1% is all we produce here of what we eat.
Yeah. Basically, it comes out to that, because we could only feed 1% of the population from what we grow. Yeah. And obviously, that wouldn't be a very diverse diet, right? That'd be a very limiting diet, even at 1%. So people have no idea, kind of what's going on in the U.S. And I think people should be really, focused in on, I kind of live in my van and travel around and try to do the work. I mean, obviously I do. And my big focus is on food. And since 2006, trying to educate people on food, what happened was that, I was traveling around. My business partner had been murdered by the Bushes, so kind of lost everything for a while. And they went after our finances on the stock market, because that's the kind of stuff that they do. So went from having, a lot of money on the stock market, worked hard for it, to having, like, in 48 hours, $2,000 left. And it started me embarking, kind of on this road trip journey, because I needed to try to find work at that point. And so I ended up all over the place, but then I ended up in Taos, New Mexico for about, I think, 8 months. And I went there for a specific job that was going to be with a nonprofit. And the guy was, like most people, I mean, they all have really great ideas, but they don't really have any follow through, and they don't really want to work that hard. So things just don't really come together. So I wasn't getting paid. So then I got offered to do some home health care, because I'd done that in the past. And so I was doing that part-time. And then I ended up in Taos at that period of time. Probably was like the most conscious place in the United States. And they had this theater that was given to the people and the public. And so, like 2 nights a week, there was either a documentary. This is before documentaries really got ripping. And so there would be all these underground people who were producing these documentaries and stuff like that, and that would travel around, like with the people from Democracy Now! They came to Taos quite a bit. And just on all these topics. And so then I started meeting a lot of the people in Taos, and I'd go to their lectures and what they were talking about, and about all these different things that were impacting the U.S. and just, it was unbelievable. I was like, I hit this place right at the right time where all these other people that were living there and people that were converging on the area that had all this information, and were doing lectures and trying to talk to people about everything that was going on. It was a very super knowledgeable period of my life. I learned a lot about a lot of things, but I ended up running into this guy named Keith McHenry, who was at that time like the 30-year one of the founders originally of Food Not Bombs. Very active in the world. Food Not Bombs was volunteer organization, mostly vegan, vegetarian, and operated all over the world. And it was like this very self-organized, amazing, thing that he started. Now it's like, I think it's like worldwide. I just had him on my show like a few weeks ago, and he's there. This next year is going to be the 40th anniversary, and he's still working hard to help the homeless. He's even developing some ways to help them. He's got a project right now called the Homeless Union, where a lot of people are actually coming in and trying to help the legal issues that the homeless are facing, especially these women who, become homeless, and then the state comes in and takes their babies for no reason and their children for no reason, just other than they're homeless. So I was in Taos and I met this guy named Keith McHenry, and Keith had opened this place on the main strip, and he was hosting a lot of food related like documentaries and talks, and he was getting ready to create this thing called the World Peace Conference, where people could come from all over the world, and it would be piggybacking or Food Not Bombs 30-year anniversary would piggyback, the World Peace Conference in Taos, New Mexico. And the state was, New Mexico had $100,000 in hand just to give Keith if he could get this, peace conference off the ground. So it was funded. But it was a huge amount of work, and I got asked to be on the think tank for that, about, bringing it to fruition. So I got to know Keith a little bit more. Anyway, it was during that time frame where I started to see a lot of information that was coming across from different colleges, and these were, when they certain people are asked to do papers on their reflections of what may happen or what the statistics are, or they create statistics of, what will happen under these kinds of events. And there was a paper, and I can't remember if it was from Harvard. I think it was like a dual paper from like 2 universities, economic people. And they were asked to figure out what would happen in America if the currency collapsed. And I think it was released in 2005 or 2006 or something like this. But I remember reading it, and I remember like just being totally shocked. And this was kind of like this huge moment where everything like snapped. This was in 2007, I think.
2007 and 8. We had definitely a lot of economic stuff came up.
Well, no, I wasn't really in it at that point in time because I was in Taos. I was kind of living in it. But anyway, the paper came out in like 2005 or 2006. So in 2007, I was in Taos and I was taking in all this information. But it was like this epic moment when I realized that anything that was going to happen to the food supply, because even back then it was pretty apparent that we didn't grow enough food in the United States for per capita for people. And that these economic experts came out and they talked about how that something like if the currency collapsed and the food was the big issue, right? The food was the whole focus of these papers, even though it wasn't supposed to be, but it was the major thing. But basically it came out that like 30 days after the currency collapsed to like something like 5 years, they expected half of the population of America to die, and most of it through starvation.
Well, I do see some positives on the currency front. It looks like to me that we are in the process of going back to a gold-backed currency.
Right, but you can't
issued
eat
by
gold.
the Department of Treasury.
Right, I get all that, but thing is, you can't eat gold. You know, that's the problem, is that, you know, you could have money in hand, but you not be able to buy food.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how it's going to play out, but it appears that this is going to happen and that it's going to be done as smoothly as possible. So there may be a transition where it's not the Weimar Republic, where you have to get a wheelbarrow full of money to buy a loaf of bread, if you will.
Well, I think it'll be the opposite. I think people will have money, but there will be no food available because of all the flooding and everything that's taken place over the last couple of years. There was just a huge underground irrigation ditch that fed like numerous states. This thing was huge, and it fed like Nebraska, Wyoming, some states where they grow a lot of stuff, and they're having a total heat spell, and the whole ditch collapsed, and none of those states could get water. They can't water their crops. All the crops are dying. They won't be able to get it to market on top of all this other food. And people don't grow food, and people don't have seeds. And, you know, there's this really killer book that I read. I highly recommend it. It was called The Red Tent, and it was written by this woman who kind of took, you know, did some intuitive stuff, but also took biblical stuff and history stuff and all this other stuff and wove the story of the Red Tent, which was the wives. They were all sisters of Jacob, you know, the Jacobites. And they talked about it. The book was from the perspective of Dinah, who was the only daughter of Jacob. He had like 12 sons and one daughter, and it was her story. And her mothers were the last pagan women, you know, who bled together. That's why it's called the Red Tent, right? Still kind of, you know, was involved in that. But one of the things that really was astonishing in this book is like how these women, like everything in their whole life and their world and their environment, all went back to the soil, the plants, and the seeds. That was it. And so at some point they have to leave their land, and they have to trudge, you know, like miles away in these caravans. And so these women, the only thing that they really saw as having major value, which was life or death, were the seeds. So they basically, you know, would have had lots of crops and saved seeds for several years before they would have ever considered leaving where they were at. And that they sowed all of the seeds and everything in their apparel so that their seeds couldn't be stolen or found.
Well, you know, the heirloom seeds, and they're called heritage or heirloom seeds. Are these the type of seeds, or are they considered something different, even older, that you're dealing with?
It just depends. I have a lot of heirloom seeds. I have stored. I have emergency, you know, buckets of seeds. I have seeds that I've actually collected out in the wild. I also have quite a bit of the, people call them heritage seeds. I don't call them that. I call them native seeds because they were given and they come from the native people. And they're like the first seed, you know what I mean? They're like the pure seeds.
Yeah, they haven't been hybridized or genetically altered.
Yeah. They have, which makes them, you know, just so people know, those native seeds, the seeds that, even heirloom seeds have been hybrided, right?
Right.
Because, we didn't have lettuce on the planet. Like,
or
lettuce
corn
didn't exist. Well, corn actually has always been around. It is a grass.
But it's been heavily altered from its original form, right?
Well, I think in some places, but I think some of it has been cultivated by, native people over thousands of years. So I think that the altering was completely different than, if it was in a lab.
Yeah.
I'd rather have my seeds altered with prayer and ceremony any day. Right?
Oh, I'm a big believer in that. You should always bless your food before you eat it and value it. And I do believe that's important. So that's just a reminder for the audience, the heirloom or native seeds, as you call them, they grow year after year. So you've got food for life, right? Collect those seeds each year and you've got, and then they become more acclimatized to your particular microenvironment.
Yeah, well, every seed is going to adapt to, every seed that you're going to have is going to adapt to you. It's going to adapt to your water. It's going to adapt to your animals. It's going to adapt to the soil and the air. So it will adapt in its environment. I think in Rudolph's, in biodynamics, they always talked about the kind of a 3-generation rule that, for example, we had a cow. So Harold Hoven, he was phenomenal. He was handpicked by the International Biodynamic Association, which was under Rudolf Steiner's work, to come to California and Fair Oaks, and he was there during the 30 years that the Steiner College was there. They closed in May 2006, probably one of the most significant gyms in the United States. No longer exists. But Harold put it into perspective. They grew food at the Steiner College. They had CSA because they had internships and stuff like that, and Harold ran the program. And he put in perspective about the cow. So about how you have these 3 generational periods, and it happens with seeds and it happens with animals. So when you first bring that cow to your land, because they had one milking cow, because biodynamics is very, very, the whole structure of it circulates around lactating cow poop, right? So you got to have a female cow, and she's got to be, having babies, and she's got to be producing milk, right? Because that's the muy bueno gold standard of medicine for land in biodynamics.
Huh. I've never heard this.
Yeah, we put it in horns and we put it underground, and it goes through periods where it cures, and then it comes out, and then we use it as medicine to solve a lot of the issues in the soil and on the land.
You're saying the milk does?
No, the poop.
The manure. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this is Harold would always say things to us, when people were new and they didn't know, when we were out collecting, the cow poop at certain farms to do a collective together gathering, of making the medicines, putting the cow poop in the horn, the horn prep. And there'd be man cows there, and people would say, "Oh, you want us to collect that?" And he goes, "Oh, no, we don't do bullshit. We only do cow shit." But anyway, he told a story about when they first brought their cow that they'd had. She she lived, to be pretty old. She was a Jersey cow. And when they first got her when she was young, and they brought her to the Steiner College, even though she had this really awesome, her own space, with the chickens and really good biodynamic cultivated soil with beautiful grasses in it. She had issues. She was nervous. She was stressed out. And Harold said it's because, she was taken from her home. So she knows those smells. She knows what that grass tastes like where she's from. And then she's brought here where she doesn't know anything, like her smelling and her brain and her taste and all these things. It's not the same. And so she's very stressed out in her environment, through her whole life. She was kind of a little bit of a nervous cow. But then he said what happened was that when she had a baby, the baby was Mona. The baby was Mona. So she had Mona the cow, and she was a female cow. And so when their main cow died, Mona took over. And Mona was like half as stressed because now she already was connected to the land. She was genetically altered and connected to the land, right? Because she was born there. And so she was half as stressed out. She still had a little nervousness and stress because it was passed down from the mother, but she was connected to that land and the grass. Well, then when Luna got old enough, Mona got old enough, the second one, and then she had Luna, baby Luna. Luna was going to be a female cow too. Luna was like totally on the land. Luna was like lay down on the grass and spread eagle. Anyone come in, she was like.
We are at the break now.
Oh, hey, everyone. It's
so
Barbara
we'll be right
Lindsay,
back, everybody.
The Cosmic
Lots more to
Oracle.
talk about.
If you have questions about your past lives or future plans, need answers from the cosmos about your love life or career, or just want to keep your finger on the pulse of the planet, check out my show, The Cosmic Oracle, here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com.
It is no secret that the so-called mainstream media is best described as controlled propaganda. Countless news stories are either totally ignored or spun with half-truths, and because of this, essential facts and vital information are often compromised. Join Dr. Ott every Friday night on Studio B at 10 p.m. Eastern and learn why The Story Behind the Story was nominated for a Peabody Award in its second year of producing unparalleled broadcasting excellence in 1997. That is, if you really care about learning the truth.
Wadiya will remain a dictatorship. Oh, be quiet. Why are you guys so anti-dictators? Imagine if America was a dictatorship. You could let 1% of the people have all the nation's wealth. You could help your rich friends get richer by cutting their taxes and bailing them out when they gamble and lose. You could ignore the needs of the poor for healthcare and education. Your media would appear free, but would secretly be controlled by one person and his family. You could wiretap phones. You could torture foreign prisoners. You could have rigged elections. You could lie about why you go to war. You could fill your prisons with one particular racial group, and no one would complain. You could use the media to scare the people into supporting policies that are against their interests.
Tune in Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time for Liberation Nation with Deacon John, where America comes to hear the truth.
I know this is hard for you Americans to imagine, but please try.
Ohio Exopolitics will be on from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern on Studio A. Mark Schneider will have guests on that will discuss many important topics, including the state of the world today. However, much of the show will be dedicated to the writings of Edward Albert Meyer. Let me read a short passage from one of his writings. Love is the highest principle of creation, and through it, everything exists in absolute logic. All of nature in its indescribable splendor is nothing but the love of creation, which is expressed visibly. The love of creation is everywhere, because without it, nothing at all would be able to exist. Please join Mark on Ohio Exopolitics from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern on Studio A.
Extendivite really works. Just listen to what some people have to say.
Several years ago, I was developing a very severe situation. I called it my flippy heart. It was doing not good things. And I did not want to go to a medical doctor because I just knew they would give me a cover-up pill. I didn't want to get onto that sort of thing at all. When I learned it was garlic and cayenne is a healer. It is a wonderful herb. I said, I think I'm onto something here. I'll tell you, I wouldn't be without it. It did wonderful things for me.
Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid. Call now. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Alrighty, I think we're back. Hopefully there's not too much of a gap there. I'm having to monitor the Flash player with a 40-second delay. So hopefully I didn't leave too big a gap there. This is KeithAZLive. We have a fellow host on the network. Bridgette has wonderful information for us tonight, and I'm very, very much enjoying this conversation. So welcome back, Bridgette. I understand you have a YouTube channel as well. Why don't you tell everybody again when your show is on and your YouTube channel and your soon-to-be website?
Okay. Yeah. My websites are just down because of GoDaddy. Eventually they'll be back up. But my main website that I use is coe-llc.com. That one is down. It's kind of stuck with a plugin. So hopefully in the next couple of days it'll be back up. And then I also have another website, Ministry of Consciousness of Nevada.org. Has a lot of shamanism stuff on it, just basic kind of stuff to help people. I do see people online by Zoom appointment, and also people come to Reno to see me in person, or sometimes I travel to go see other people. And so I do consult, and so I do appointments on Zoom, and so I have clients all over the place. Also, the traditional osteopathic work I do on people, I also do on animals. So everything I do on humans, I do on animals as well. Part of the work that I do on animals is actually chiropractic care. And I learned from the guy who actually developed chiropractic care for animals. He actually developed it for thoroughbred racehorses like 45 years ago. And so I was lucky enough to be able to grace his path and study with him as well. So I love getting out there and helping those horses. I do everything by hand too. I don't use any mallets. I don't do anything other than, working on them. Also, if people want to get a hold of me, they can contact me by email, which is consciousnessofelconomics@gmail.com. And then my YouTube channel, which is Consciousness of Economics and Urban Farm Project. Anyway, it's kind of fun. I have so many people on my shows all the time. It's nice to be on other people's shows.
Yeah. Well, I really enjoy having fellow hosts. I know you've been with the network for a little while. I wasn't sure how new you. I'm kind of an old timer. So
yeah, I could tell.
And it's this is a totally different time slot, so you're getting a lot of new people, hopefully, that may be interested in getting help from you. I'm not that far from Reno myself, so I may even schedule an appointment. We'll see how my economics go on that account. But this is very exciting. Do you need to finish up anything from your story? I do want to ask you about your shamanic work too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it takes 3 generations for animals or seeds to become part of the land and the land be part of them. So even if you're going to grow seeds and say the first year you grow some plants and they only give you a few seeds back and they look funky and whatever else, you just want to plant them again the next year. And then, and then after that, give them one more shot. And by the third time, you will have cultivated something that is for your land, by your land, works with your land, and now is community to everything on your land.
And I'm sure you sound like you're probably well versed on companion planting, right?
Well, I kind of do more like intuitive companion planting. And the other problem is that, sometimes most of the people in the land projects that I've done, and there's always going to be other people, and they usually are not as educated as me, but nonetheless, they have to try to have some influence over what's going on in the garden. So I try to counter. And the other thing too is I grow what shows up, what plants actually, want to grow. And if I do companion plant, I usually what I do is I create in smaller areas and yards and stuff like that, what I call a support garden spot. And usually that's going to be on some piece of the outside area of where the food is being grown directly. And I will grow herbal plants. For example, I have stuff on my YouTube channel from last summer. And I grew Tulsi or holy basil. I had a friend of mine send me a whole bunch of native seeds. And we're talking like, native seeds from India and native seeds from America. And then, I kind of used them. And so, I planted Hopi sunflower plants in the support area. I planted like Tulsi. What else did I plant in there? I planted a whole bunch of little plants that I knew that were going to have big flowers on them and lots of pollen in the support area, because they were going to grow and, start producing flowers way sooner than probably the food that I was growing. So I wanted to be I'm more kind of, I guess, more into support areas for gardens and also to help diversify pollen for bees and butterflies and, other birds. But I'm more kind of less companion planting and more support, I guess, a supportive planter.
Well, and also the composting you mentioned at the start of the show is so important as well. We should all be composting, even if we, like myself, have failed to plant a garden the last couple of years. Life is, we just get focused on things. And you're reminding me I need to get back to doing that. And I have been remiss. I have, just being honest. But any special tricks about composting that you want to share?
Well, I like the biodynamic freestanding compost because I hate anything freestanding that's not touching the ground. My teacher basically said it's our job to create a compost on the ground that actually conjures the, microorganisms to come up from deep in the earth into the compost bed. So it's our job to actually, make a compost bed on the ground that, the microorganisms want to come up to and into and participate into. Anytime you have to add anything into your compost, like worms or whatever else, you're not really creating very good compost. All that should happen on its own if you've done a good job. And the other thing too is that I don't allow my compost to heat up in any way. Because it kills the microorganisms, and I consider microorganisms part of the silent nutrition that we need in our bodies. And so if we're letting our compost get over 90 degrees, I think it is, maybe even 80, we've just killed every microorganism in it. And our bodies are structured and created by microorganisms. Microorganisms hold it all together. Microorganisms actually hold our cells into a circular pattern. And when we don't have microorganisms in our body, or the ones that are in our cells flee, then the red blood cells start to stick together and coagulate the arteries, and it's called inflammatory disease. So microbes play a really huge part in us not having the first stages of all disease, which is inflammatory disease.
So do you dig a hole and cover it, or how exactly do you
No, we create
that?
in biodynamics, we create freestanding ones that we put straw around, and then you just take the lid off every once in a while and put the foot in about every 3 weeks. We like them to be about 5 feet long, about 3 feet wide, and then we like them to get about 5 feet tall. And then, mind you, you know, they're held together with straw on the outside, because we it's about creating an organism with a membrane around it, right? An organ, and the straw is the membrane. And
that's really interesting.
Yeah, so, and then we just feed it. I always laugh when I teach people how to build them, and then I go back over for support, how to feed them and water them, because they remind me of, like, you know, I always say, feed me Seymour, you know, from what was that one show where it had the living plant, and the plant kept eating all the people. The guy had him, and he kept getting bigger. Little Shop of Horrors. And the guy was Seymour, and the plant would go, Seymour, feed me.
So what exactly do you feed it? Are you just putting more compost in, or is there some?
Well, you always have to. So I particularly like 60% wet or green material, along with 40% carbon, which can be sticks, can be, you know, carbon can be dried chicken poop, it can be dried horse poop, it can be, you know, dried leaves, it can be a lot of different stuff.
What about, you know, just ashes from a wood stove or something?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can add that kind of stuff in, but you want to be like ginger about it, you know, you don't want to be adding in tons of different stuff at that moment, you know, like every 3 weeks you can just make some layers like a lasagna on the top. And you just open the hatch, which is the top part of the compost, and then you lay stuff down, some wet. So everything. The only thing that I don't compost are things like wormwood, probably wouldn't compost mugwort, you know, things that kind of are in the anti-parasitic family, because they'll kill the microbes. And then
I see, right.
It won't eat up the compost. It won't change it into mycelium, you know. And I also... I like to collect, and if we're in urban settings, I teach people how to, you know, just buy mushrooms at the store and put different kinds of mushrooms in it, so that those organisms are actually helping to digest it as well. And so it's a stomach. And so, you know, probably in 3 months, I can create like the most unbelievable soil that you have ever seen. Wow. And it's like light and fluffy and marshmallowy and dark and rich and full of like mycelium and all these microorganisms. And it's radical stuff. And the other thing too, that how I got into it, because I am a total composty soil freakazoid. I'm just a total freak about it.
Yeah.
On a biodynamic farm, it was only like a 15% biodynamic farm I was on. They had this crazy of all crazies, but he had gone to biodynamic school, and he did the compost. And it was the first time that I ever really understood alchemy and held something that was of the highest standard of an alchemical practice, you know. Which was his compost. It even had like gold fleck and all kinds of stuff in it, that it was generated that way by him building it. So after that, I just kind of, you know, and then once you'd open the compost up, all the chickens and all the animals, even wild animals, could smell it, and they would just come all in the vicinity, man. Chickens would be attacking it because it's so rich. And it just, you know, it's like living life, and they just want to, like, you know, totally ingest it. So it's pretty interesting to watch that kind of stuff happen, which brings me to kind of a really cool thing that also is a component that came into this, like long before I went to biodynamic school. But there's a book, I forget what the guy's name is. I think the book is called like The Maker's Diet. So I'm also working on processes of creating a biodynamic type of composting that is digestible or ingestible for humans. to actually restore all the microbial processes and heal disease, and then heal the underlying factor of the inflammatory disease. And a lot of it's based on this guy's life. He was like 25. He came from old school East Coast prominent, doctors, some of the most prominent doctors in the East Coast. He himself was going to medical school. He had like 5 different types of diseases. I think one of them was like Hodgkin's disease. And he literally was like 6'5" and weighed like 100 pounds, because he was dying, and his body, there was so much inflammatory disease, and that the microbes were in the bad phase. Microbes kind of run a 4-phase process, and in the body, I guess I have to kind of explain this to people, because a lot of people don't really understand this. So you have your cell, right? You say you have your red cell. Your red cell carries oxygen, water, food, also, peptides and hormones and just all kinds of different stuff to the body. This is how it's moved around to the different organs and everything else, right? And when something happens, you could have an injury, you could have a really like post-traumatic, emotional event where you kind of go in shock, your body's kind of in shock for a while. You could have a serious injury, bad diet, get a disease, all kinds of different things that can cause, inflammatory disease in the blood. And so what I'm talking about is when you have so much inflammatory disease in all your different systems that your blood finally adopts the inflammatory disease. Well, what happens is that the cells are round up until that point, and then they collapse because the microbes leave them. That's why they collapse. So the microbes held inside the cell, and they're doing their job inside the cell. And so basically they like compost, they eat all the bad stuff and then help to regenerate the cell. But because they're in a border setting, it's a sustainable closed loop system. But once they get, thrashed around, the body gets thrashed around for whatever reason, then the microbes will actually leave the cells, and then they start to like run amok. Well, one of the things that happens is people end up in a really high acid states that they can't get the acid down, and then they're creating more disease. Because the body, the more acid state the body is, the more disease. And the other thing too, same thing happens with compost. I see it. You get too much acid, which is too much heat, and you destroy the compost. The compost actually catches on fire and can burn itself up. I mean, same concept that was going on with the body.
Right.
So the microbes get out of control, then their byproduct, or they poopy, which they would have cleaned up if they were in the closed loop system in the cell, right? That's part of it. So they break everything down, and then they put it into something good, and then it would go back into the body and be reusable. But when they go outside the cell and they're stuck outside the cell, they just go into degeneration, breaking down you as compost. That's all they're doing, is breaking you down, right? Because that's the only cycle that they know. And while they're doing it, there's lots of poopy, which is the byproduct, and that causes a lot of the acid in the system. So once you get like one kind of inflammatory thing, then it just kind of sparks a fire through the whole body, and then you have all these different systems of inflammatory disease. And something that's really interesting that I learned this summer, doing this wild crafting herbal medicine class, because I'm studying a lot of herbal plants that I've never worked with before, right? That have, powerful medicine, and learning how they do what they do to help, say, autoimmune system disease or Lyme disease or all these, underlying inflammatory type issues. And so what I've learned is that inflammation will start at some point in your body. So say, for example, you get a leg injury. Well, then that tissue will start to harden or whatever around the bone or whatever else. And then it'll start to actually cause problems. So you start to have tissue inflammation that doesn't heal. Then that might move to the joint, and then you might have some cartilage and tendons and ligaments starting to go into an inflammatory system, which is a breakdown system. All, because say that it's offline from the brain or the body, like we talked about earlier. And so usually it's like one thing at a time where you have inflammation like going, firing off through the body. And then the last segment is when the blood, your red blood, starts to thicken, and it loses the microbes in it, loses its, strong structure, and you start to get really tired. Your body no longer is taking in or holding oxygen. It's no longer taking in and holding water. It's no longer passing nutrient around. And, people do have red blood cell strokes where the blood gets too thick. Kind of a situation. Doctors won't tell you about that, but it does happen.
Yeah, and then it won't pass through the capillaries, I guess.
Yeah, it just becomes so thick that and you're exhausted. Usually when you have, inflammatory blood system issues, you are so tired, like you could literally not stay awake. And nothing will help you. It has to be pretty radical to get those microbes back into the system. So I've worked with doctors, that come from Germany, where they've used things like pleomorphics for hundreds of years instead of antibiotics, which are basically lab-created microbes. And there's different varieties of them that you take. And, you don't have withdrawals, and you don't have antibiotic resistance. You don't have any of this stuff because they're putting these microbes in the jars are talking to the microbes that you have that are out of balance, and they're getting them back in balance over a period of time, getting them back into the cells so that they stop, creating mayhem. But, this kind of stuff, even though it's zero harmful, is banned in the U.S.
Of course.
So I look at compost and the ability to make these kinds of biodynamic, human edible compost. So go back to the story. You don't have a bottom of the hour. Do you have a bottom of the hour?
No, late night, the bottom of the hour is not in effect.
Okay, I just wanted to know, just because, sometimes I get on a roll. No.
Yeah, we're good.
So there was this guy, I read his book. I think it was like in the 2007, 8, 9, something like in there. And so it was this guy, I think his last name was Rubin, wrote this book, The Maker's Diet, based on his experience. And he was a kid, and he was 25, and he was going to medical school, and he came from a prominent old East Coast family of doctors, and he was really sick, and he was dying. And basically his body was eating him away, because he's like 100 pounds, like 6'5", because the microbes are degenerating him. They're turning him into broken down compost because they're out of the cells. They're not, there's not new microbes being created, and he's not eating plants from the dirt. He's not eating dirt. He's not in the environment. So he's getting no microbes back into his system at all. So his whole life is sterile. Everything in his life is sterile, and there's no microbes to regenerate or get him into his body. So he's dying. Anyway, his father was like, put out this, APB across, all the medical fields, and even said that if somebody could come forward with something that would actually save his life, that they would actually be open-minded to alternative therapies, which they had never been. And so what happened was these people from Israel, I guess it was like a really old tradition, like they've been doing it for a long, long time. They cultivate soil as medicine, right? And all it is it's putting the microbes back into your system where they should be. They're repopulating your body with microorganisms, because, what does almost every spiritual text tell you? From the earth you came, and the earth you will return. So your body is like compost, right? And that's how most of the processes work. That's like the basic core is the microorganism in your system. It's the oldest thing in this whole reality. The microorganism was here long before anything else was here. So anyway, so these people came forward, and these Israel people that had this soil, and they basically said, look, we have this dirt. We can give him dirt. We make more of it, the soil, and he needs to eat it. He needs to eat like 3 handfuls a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And he has to have, really good quality purified water. And that's it. So the family was like, all right, well, we've tried every possible thing and nothing else is working. So they rented a beach house. They put him on a beach house, and that every day he ate, a big handful of this medical, I'm going to call it, medicine soil that was rich in microbes and purified water. And within 6 months, he was completely cured of everything. And he went on to try to help other people. He had, for a while there, he had a company called Beyond Organic. But because it was dabbling in a lot of raw products that have huge microbial mass and bacteria and all this other stuff, you had to be a member in order to get your stuff sent to your door. And so he was traveling to places like Africa and different countries, where they make types of kefir from like raw milks and stuff like that can really populate your body with bacteria and microorganisms and all this other stuff. And so people could actually buy this stuff, and it would get delivered to their door from his company. But I don't think it did very well. People, for the most part, people don't really understand, I think, what he was talking about, even in his book. And a lot of people don't really even understand, food properly. So even though he really attempted to try to help a lot of people, I don't know what his company's doing now, but they just couldn't relate or understand. It's just so far away from people's minds to be able to kind of understand like this whole soil thing, right? And this whole, microorganism is probably the most important nutritional thing that you need. And yet nobody ever discusses it or talks about it. Even nutritional experts don't talk about it. That's the part that blows me away, is like all these doctors and all these people, we're nutritional and diet specialists. Okay, well, where's the fresh food? Where's the sunlight in the food, right? Where's the, where's the actual nutrition? People have to get away from these products. I had brain cancer, and a lot of it was from overworking. Most people that came into my practice were sick. But the big one is that I ate a lot of protein powders and bars and took a huge halation amount of supplements. This is a while ago. And I just realized, after I cured my brain cancer, that's just not the way to go. I mean, how ludicrous is that? Like, you could grow food in your own yard. And think about how much money you would save. So what, you live in an apartment, and then, you pay all this money for your juicer and, your co-op fee and all this other stuff. And you have all these supplements all over your counters and all this stuff. I mean, add that up. Wouldn't it be cheaper for you to rent a house that had a backyard and you cultivate your own food, and you won't need any of that other stuff? I bet you'd even save money. And you'd be healthier in the long run because you actually eat food. And this is the other thing too, is nutritional supplements, they can't get the chemistry right. Because your body knows what it needs, what it wants, and how it can, even if it's missing something, if you give it the right food, it can figure out how to make it with what it's being given. Now, if you put supplements and stuff in it, it can't figure it out.
a great number of them aren't really even that bioavailable. I mean, you've got to look at that. I mean, some people will say that, we're not getting enough vitamin C. That's one supplement that's important to take in a bioavailable form. But of course, I would guess probably the entire listening audience has taken supplements or is taking supplements of one kind or another. And it makes so much sense what you're saying. This is really new information for me. I've been aware of kefir and, probiotics and that sort of thing to get that balance. But what you're describing is such a much more direct way. And by the way, I think you're communicating it extraordinarily well. I think this is really, really important information.
Well, thank you. So, okay, let's take vitamin C. I do, and I have in the past, and I do give my dog some liposomal vitamin C, right? Because I wouldn't take any other vitamin C. It makes absolutely no sense. But you can sprout food, right? My favorite website for sprouting food and getting seeds for sprouting food. And mind you, can sprout the food. They're killer for survival, better than anything else for survival, because you could actually grow these seeds in a garden if you had to as well, right? And then you can sprout them. And sprouting is like super easy. So my favorite website is the Sprout People. And they have every type of blend. And I forget. I always call it the longevity blend, but I forget what they call it, long life blend or something like that. But it has 8 different types of vegetable, and it has both cabbages. It's kind of like a little bit of a immune system cancer blend, But I was reading this article, and the guy was talking about how 1 cup of sprouts, right? I mean, in a survival setting, you could eat just 1 cup of sprouts. You only have to soak them one night, right? And they don't, take that much water, and then you just rinse them every day after that until they get to the length that you want. But he was saying 1 cup of full sprouts is equivalent to the nutritional density of what most people eat in 2 weeks. 2 weeks.
That's amazing. I'm going to check out that website, by the way.
And this is the other thing, too, is bioavailable means from food. And how this whole bioidentical, bioavailable stuff got into supplements makes actually no sense at all. Because biological is food for humans, right? That's plants, stuff that you would eat to have bio-ready nutrient, kind of a stuff. The other stuff is not really biologically available. I mean, this is what they said with female hormones for all those years. Oh yeah, we've got these horse estrogen or progesterone, and it's, it's biologically compatible. Well, hell, no, it's not. It's freaking a horse.
And of course, for men, there's testosterone supplements as well.
Right, and they claim, it's bioidentical. Well, it's not, because it's not from the earth, and it's not for human consumption. It's not for humans.
Well,
sprouting. This is the thing: is you get the hugest amount of vitamin C from sprouted food. Where you wouldn't even need a supplement if you ate a half a cup of sprouts a day.
I'm going to do that, I swear. This is really you're really helping me, Bridgette.
Well, and you can do sprouts in your own house, and you don't need
I know, they're
That's
super
the other
easy.
thing.
It's super easy.
Yeah. And the protein level skyrockets on them. That's the other thing, too, is people are so caught up on. And we're having serious kidney problems right now. Lots of people are having serious kidney problems. I think it's from all the lithium spray and the chemtrails myself. And all the nuclear stuff. A lot of the people are getting type 2 diabetes, and it's not from their food. It's not from any of that. It's from all the nuclear radiation. There was no type 2 diabetes until they started dabbling with nuclear weapons. So I think a lot of all the kidney stuff is directly related to to the lithium and stuff like that. But yeah. So
a little story. My grandfather designed the heating and air conditioning for Los Alamos Labs when they built the atomic bomb, and the plans were actually burned on the property I grew up on. But you're absolutely right. People don't realize the incredible amount of atmospheric nuclear testing that's been done, not just by the U.S., but all over the world, has actually added a lot more radiation to our environment.
Well, and the kidneys are super sensitive, and they end up processing a lot of the meat protein. And so it's really not a good time to, I'm not trying to dissuade people from eating meat. I know that meat fat is good for the brain, along with a lot of plant essential fatty acids, because the brain runs everything. So you got to keep that brain fed. You don't keep your brain fed, then you're not going to be able to operate any of your systems. For example, going back to the nervous system, the telephone system, B vitamins coat your nerves. So if you don't have B vitamins coating your nerves, also your signals are not going to go very far from the brain through the body.
Yeah. I've had a naturopath on this show a couple of weeks ago. And he mentioned that there's like 4 blood types too, and some people are, it's easier for them to go vegetarian than others.
I mean, this is the thing is that because, kidney failure is like super widespread right now. I think that whole 4 blood types for me is like ancient knowledge, been there, done that. And I didn't really consider it that great of information. But, the fact is that people are having a lot of kidney problems, and they're pushed, especially with diabetes and stuff like that, to eating a predominantly meat protein diet. And that actually is super hard on the kidneys when they're having rough spells, and actually can stall them, keep them from, working properly. And then you've got to go in and have, dialysis, and then try to get some kind of kidney replacement where, like if you are having any kind of stuff going on with your kidneys, doesn't matter what type of blood type you are. I mean, you have to stop eating meat protein to save your kidneys. Period. End of story.
Well, this is fascinating. My philosophy has kind of been get the toxins out and get good nutrition in. And what you're saying makes so much. I'm definitely going to do the sprouts. I'm really excited about that. 2 weeks of nutrition in 1 cup of sprouts. That is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you just start feeling so much better every day, and it's not that hard to eat those sprouts. I mean, it's not like they taste bad or anything else like that. And
I like them. I like sprouts.
It's such a power-packed little doodad. Well, and they say one of the things too that I've read, this is a long time ago, like 20 years ago, I've read a lot of people's books who were old school. I hate the word doctors, but were old school people who understood that the soil, the health of the soil also related to the health of the people, and so,
our soil, the agriculture, the industrial agriculture, the soils are so depleted that they're using all these petrochemical fertilizers on. And,
well, but not only that, but the chemtrails. So there is no organic anymore.
Yeah. It's amazing. I also, and this relates to the shamanic work, if you want to talk about that, where the show's running by pretty fast. But I feel that with growing your own food, too, it's not just the nutrition. There's an energetic component to it that feeds your subtle bodies, is my feeling.
I mean, well, one of the things Rudolf Steiner did say, he wasn't a shaman or did shamanism, but he said that if we continued to eat from unhealthy soil, that we would be locked in the prison of our body. And I see that a lot with people who are struggling with pain and, illness and stress and autoimmune system stuff is, it's impossible to be spiritual when you're in pain and don't feel good all the time. There is no, vibration, and there is no way to get a higher vibration. And I think a lot of it has to go back to that. We really have to go back to a relationship to the earth. And I've had, I tell this story a lot, but in my practice or, in my life journey, I've come in contact with some of the most powerful, unbelievable people ever, and they've graced my life, and they've taught me just incredible things. And then, I've helped them as much as I, can as well. A lot of it has to do with kind of nutrition and new thoughts and processes about spirituality and how we physically live on the earth, and, for health. And I remember this was like 2005, I think. And this guy who was living in San Diego, he was a Nibirian priest, and he was like in his 50s. He had, probably mega PhDs. His big thing was like theology. He studied all of the spiritual practices and religions, of the earth. And he had reached a place in his life where he didn't sleep anymore. He just sat and meditated all night, basically. Mm-hmm. And he got cancer, and he was shocked that he got cancer because he felt like, he'd reached these pivotal points in spirituality and these ancient, practices. And one of the things I had to tell him was that was then. This is now. Back then when you wanted to reach higher places and you would travel out of your body or meditate and contact, other realms or whatever else, you could wake up during the day and go for a walk and literally pick food and eat it as you went along. Yeah. We don't have that anymore. That's not part of that process. We have to now stop going to other places and meditating because the world is so toxic and so sick, and we're so toxic and sick that we have to stop a lot of those heightened spiritual processes so that we can develop a routine to actually take care of our bodies right now.
Yeah, we're under assault from like every side. It's not just the food and the chemtrails, it's the electromagnetic spectrum as well.
Yeah, so I had to teach him.
And actually the psychic realm too.
Yeah, so I had to teach him to stop meditating. So he had to unteach himself after like 15 years of non-sleeping. He had to start feeding himself, and doing a lot of things that he didn't really do anymore. And in some cases, he said that he never did it in the first place, never took certain kinds of care of himself. But It came down to that he had prostate cancer and he was going to die. It was pretty developed. And I told him, I'm like, when you ignore your body, great, you want to reach heightened spiritual planes, but do you still want to live on earth? Because if you still want to live on earth, then you better, you better get in touch with your body, and you better make amends to it, and you better be friends with it, because you're quickening to get the heck out of this world. He's like, well, I want to stay here because I just got married, and my wife is coming from, Africa, and she's going to be living here. And I'm like, okay, well, then you have to be here. You know what I mean? You got to make a decision to be here and not be somewhere else, and make sure that your body gets sleep. And just
plain love your body. When people say that we're spirits inhabiting a meat suit, I say that's not how I view it. this is me, my body and my multidimensional being, all the aspects of it, my chakras. This is me. I'm own all of it. And yes, at some point I will transition, but while I'm here, and just I think just loving your body emotionally, that was a connection that took me a long time to make. I had some help understanding that. I had a lot of, the emotional aspect of not feeling worthy, kind of, Well, not kind of. I did. I just didn't feel like I was deserving somehow, and it took me a while to understand that and start changing that in myself.
Yeah, well, I think that a lot of people, it's become a generational thing. Because people don't have, I think there's a lot of reasons, but I really like that. I want to tell this story about this extraterrestrial story, because about these extraterrestrials. I remember reading it from this guy who, and I don't know if this guy is actually talking to extraterrestrials. I've talked to a lot of extraterrestrials myself. All different kinds. And
I have
sometimes
as well, actually.
It's hard to tell if people really are, but I really like this story because this kind of like encompasses, where our mind should be. But anyway, so this guy, and I don't remember his name. Anyway, so he starts getting contacted by these extraterrestrials, and they come and visit with him for a while, and then they leave, and they come back in like 6 months or something, a year, 2 years. Then they come back and meet with them, and so they kind of start building a relationship with them. And so they tell him, okay, well, the next time we come, we want you to research money on your planet, and then we would like you to give us a presentation on everything that you found, and we're going to come back in like 6 months. And so we just give you a time frame so when we're coming back, because we really are confused about this money thing on your planet. Like, we don't really understand it, and we would just like to have a little bit more information, like maybe if you could figure some things out and then create a presentation. So this guy's like super excited. He's like, yeah, no problem. 6 months, I'll have it together for you. So this guy like studies all kinds of stuff about money, money systems, governments, like the whole 9 yards, and gets down to the super nitty gritty of like what's going on this planet. And he's even astonished. He's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Can't believe this stuff is going on. So the guy has this, board set up, and he has all these things tacked onto the walls and everything, because when they show up, he's got to show them like how he's gotten from, their last conversation to this, uncovering all of this. And so he wants it to be this really great presentation. So for literally an hour, he sort of kind of describes, points to all the different things that he's got on the wall so that they can look at it. And he's like pieced it all together over 6 months. And so when he gets done, he's like standing there looking at him, and they're like, well, we know all this stuff anyway. We know all this stuff. You haven't really brought us, you haven't really provided us with any more information that we don't understand. And he said, well, I don't get it. And they said, well, it's like this. You were born on a planet that has unlimited resources, unlike other planets. So this is like this major gift of however you got there, however you got here, whatever's going on here. The bottom line is you were born to one of the most, worlds that has the most possible resources. Like, you could want for nothing in this world, unlike other planets and worlds where, people have to really struggle. Civilizations have to really struggle because they don't have all of these components. And he said, so you're born on this world with infinite amount of resources, but you grow up to learn through your education system how to go to a 9-to-5 job And then you get stuck in a 9-to-5 job so that you could make money to pay them for the resources on this planet, which were your birthright from the moment you took your first breath. And so they said, we just don't understand why you all are compliant. Why would you work a job to make this money, to pay them for the resources that belong to you? And that's what we don't get. I just love that story.
Well, we've been hoodwinked into forging our own chains, and I think we're graduating from that mindset. At least a sufficient percentage of us are, that I think that system is going to shift.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, we weren't hoodwinked. We liked money. People like money. And so a lot of people just sold themselves out for the money because they liked having a lifestyle where they had money.
Yeah. Yeah. My viewpoint is pretty complex, and there isn't enough time left to go into that. But there are other forces involved besides humans is the short answer.
Oh, I know. I totally get that. But, you know, we all had a choice. So we can't really be hoodwinked. I mean, because the thing is, we have to get away from the victim belief systems.
Well, yeah, but I think many of us are. We're realizing, you know, what you were saying. Many extraterrestrials will call this the garden planet, and will say exactly what you said. This incredible abundance here, yet we are falling for this idea of scarcity and austerity, it's just very interesting what's happening. So is there any, you say you've met have you met them in person, or people claiming to be, or as a non-physical, or anything you want to say about that?
Well, I actually have, I'm a real star kid. I have a family, a star family that put me here, in this life experience. So I'd never been here before. And they periodically visit me, or they send me things that are called, I call them triggers or port keys, or, you know, things like that. I took port keys from Harry Potter because it makes perfect sense with some of the technology that they use. And I've had a lot of different kind of conversations. I've been abducted by bad ETs. I've been visited by good ETs. I have a star family. I, like many, have been, had biological material collected for, kind of different kinds of usages. And I was kind of in a huge fight with my star family for since 2014 because some information came out, and after I thought about it for a while, I was really, really angry at them. So they all know that I don't really trust them all that much anymore. And even the ones that appear light can be liars, because everybody has an agenda, and everybody's got their finger in the pie. So probably one of the most incredible beings I met was a humanoid, a bird humanoid that was like, 6 foot tall, bird being, arms and legs kind of thing, bird head kind of a deal, who came to visit me at 5 o'clock in the morning when I was, sometimes I'm homeless and I'm sleeping in my van a lot, and came at 5 o'clock in the morning, was standing in front of the van and woke me up. And that was kind of a shocking experience, because his energy was so powerful that I actually, 2 hours later, it all hit me what happened. And then I started vomiting, and, my body just went through some really crazy, activity, because the whole experience really frightened my body.
Yeah, I've been abducted and myself. I have also had a UFO flyby, and then the occupant start telepathically contacting me, which was very interesting, very positive being. And I always say, just because they're ET doesn't mean they're nice. So,
or don't have an agenda,
right. And so, but this being that flew, it was an astonishing sighting. I mean, this incredible ship flew by low and close. It wasn't like a distant light. It was just and the light, this emerald light it was emitting was so incredibly beautiful. I don't think aliens are coming to save us or anything, but I think we are coming into a greater reality of the understanding that we're not alone here.
Yeah, well, we get to meet our gods because that's who they are. They are our gods, and they've created us, and they've created everything here, and then created extinctions to wipe out their creations periodically that they didn't like. So they could also exterminate us at one period, in the near future as well.
I don't believe that'll happen. I know some people do. I don't think that will be allowed to happen at this point. It's just an opinion, I can't say that for sure. Boy, we're almost at the end of the show. Actually, I think I hear the music.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Bridgette. Good night.
Good night.
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message. Welcome to Revolution Radio, where you, the listeners, are in charge. Here at Revolution Radio, we present 48 broadcast hours of news and information each and every day. Revolution Radio never sleeps. Revolution Radio is worldwide and borderless information. Revolution Radio is also commercial-free. Revolution Radio is supported 100% by you, the listeners. And that's why we appeal to you to donate and support this station and its expenses. You can support us in many available options like archive subscriptions, our seed pack selections, or even my woodworking store. And we also even have Revolution Radio's swag at the Revolution Radio KeithAZLive store, in which you can get t-shirts, coffee cups, even a baby onesie. Or you can just plain donate to the cause. We cannot continue without your support, and your support is what helps pay the bills. So please, if you wish us to continue, please stop by our station support page and drop a dime on us. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps. Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or computer failure took out your bank or all